All right, today I'll be reading from The Dawn of the Dhamma by Venerable Sucitto Bhikkhu. He did a series of drawings with the different tetrads from the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta for one of Luang Por Pasanno's birthdays. So I will read his commentary on the pictures, so I'll skip the portion where he describes the symbolism within the picture itself. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is chapter 9, Light on Dukkha. The tetrad is, this is the noble truth of suffering. This noble truth must be penetrated to fully understand suffering. This noble truth has been penetrated to fully understanding suffering. Such was the vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light that arose in me about things that not heard before. With these words, the Buddha goes on to deepen the significance of what he has just outlined. The repeated phrases of this section point to the penetration of the meaning of the truths. In some ways, nothing new is declared, but here the truths are gone through in 12 stages, 3 to each truth. In each case, the first stage is a fuller reflection on the importance of bearing the meaning of the truth in mind. The second stage demonstrates the way of practicing with that truth. The third fully penetrates the significance of that truth. Together, the 12 stages defines the practice. The most striking feature of this section, particularly evident when chanted, is that there seems to be similar results both from each successive level of understanding as well as from applying oneself to each of the 12 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. The understanding that there is suffering or that the suffering has been abandoned are described alike to as vision, insight, wisdom, knowing, and light, or enlightenment. Together, these present the truths and awakening in an interesting way. Could it be that the mind that can see dukkha in operating in the same liberated mode as the mind that sees the cessation of dukkha? Since it appears to be so, how do we define awakening? Could it be that we don't progressively become awake? In a sense, we already are awake, but our wrong ways of interpreting things keep blurring the picture. There is only one thing that the 12 stages have in common, apart from being symptomatic of enlightenment. They all present a highly subjective experience without mention of the self. They all are expressed as there is, it is to be, it has been. The unenlightened perspective surely is, I am, I should have, I have. If I was a mathematician, I could probably draw up an equation based on this data, which concludes, I am equals unenlightenment. The description of the practice of the Four Noble Truths does not suggest a process of becoming enlightened. It seems that a particular viewpoint is sustained and understanding arises through it. The viewpoint is a focus upon dukkha in an objective, dispassionate way. This affects intention. The mind inclines towards understanding truth rather than experiencing calm, simultaneous stimulation or happiness. The way the mind works is that the intention guides the situation, or the intention guides and sustains the quality of intention. So when the intention to penetrate the experience of dukkha Attention gathers onto that feeling and investigates it. This leads to a most powerful insight because it reveals that dukkha is structured, created, and not absolute, and therefore possible to be dismantled or not created. In brief, the sequence as it appears becomes words to appear sequentially, does not indicate a progressive quality in terms of awareness, but of the way that awareness sweeps through the experience of dukkha and fully maps out the predicament of the five aggregates. In speaking of the way, the Buddha said that one of the deepening realization, but the essence of the realization is not delayed in time. Whoever sees suffering sees also by the arising of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Samyutta Nikaya, Truths, number 310. A common recollection of the Dhamma chanted in monasteries every day is the teaching being likened to a lamp or the sun illuminating the world. The extension of practice is one of bringing that light to bear on all aspects of the khandhas, when the path is one of bringing consciousness in accord to ultimate truth. I'll just leave it there for today.
Andamayam Dhammacakkappavattana Sadhukarang Tadamase.
Sadhu, 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 anumodam.
Questions, comments?
Do you have any thoughts, Luang Por, on that the Buddha ends with aloko udapadi, the light, the
Light,
yeah, because the other ones are pretty straightforward of knowledge, vision.
Well, I mean, I think just even the word that we use simultaneously with awakening is enlightenment, and that I think it's a common image in all religious traditions of when something is there's a truth is being illuminated. So there's a good imagery of light arising, so that and also just that image of say like a delusion is also delusion, darkness, and then as light arises, then delusion is dispelled. So it's like being able to see clearly because of the presence of light. So that those are images that pretty common to the human experience, and certainly for the Buddha, then that would be an apt description of what's happening for that understanding of truth, that light is being shone on experience in a way that frees the heart from suffering.
It was quite striking to me how yesterday in the reading, Venerable Jiyu used that darkening, almost like as a refrain.
Yes. Yeah, I mean I think it's a common theme, in the human experience. It's just sort of like one associates darkness and nighttime with all of the horrors of human existence, and sort of coming out into the light, coming into the daylight, is a feeling of safety, security, familiarity. So yeah, I think it just taps into something that's kind of archetypal.
And then in darkness, not being able to see one's way.
Yeah. So that image of light arising is just, along with, on a certain level, it's even less abstract than knowledge arising, vision arising. In that sense, it's something that is maybe a bit more fundamental to our experience.
Also considering a world without flashlights, without, electricity.
Yeah.
I mean, you really had to make strong choices about when to do things and what to do and so forth, based upon the time of day and things like that. I mean, just short periods of time when I'm without my flashlight or something like that.
You don't get very far on this terrain.
Just had that thought last night, and my kuti was like, wow, electricity. I had redone the light bulbs in the bathroom yesterday. It's like, wow, light bulbs. Like, yeah, to do this without it.
Yeah, for us, it's sort of it's something that we've grown up with, but that's really recent in human experience. 2,500 years ago, it's even more stark in that sense of what light, the options that light gives you.
For this quality of wisdom in the Buddhist context of seeing the Four Noble Truths or not attaching to the khandhas, I'm curious how it relates to wisdom in the more colloquial sense of because I think it certainly seems related, like someone who's seen the Four Noble Truths and is somewhat is enlightened seems to also know have a strong degree of worldly wisdom in the sense of how to act appropriately and stuff, but I don't quite see how they're related, but certainly they seem to support one another.
Well, I think it's helpful to go back and this is something that I think we really have Ajahn Jeff to thank for in terms of the pointing out that maybe a better word for what's normally been translated as wisdom is discernment, and because of the word in Pali is panya, and it's a gerund coming from the verb pajanati, which is to know or to understand. So that wisdom is in the English language is a noun and so static, but panya, being a gerund, is based on a verb. Then there's some intimation of engagement and involvement. So it's oftentimes when we think of wisdom, it's like it's a thing, like a finished thing somehow. But when you think of discernment, then okay, you're imparting the act of discerning within that. So you're engaging with it. I think that's really that's a really important distinction, because oftentimes that's what we're looking for. We're looking for some kind of finished piece of knowledge that's somehow going to make me secure and safe. But actually the Buddhist wisdom is getting you involved in the process. So that process of knowing dukkha, abandoning the cause of dukkha, realizing cessation of dukkha, and bringing into being the path leading to cessation of dukkha. And that's really what what panya in Buddhism is. That's why it's based on the Four Noble Truths. It's interesting because just the assumptions that we make inherently when just the difference between a noun and a gerund. It's just it conditions how we relate to something. Yeah.
So would Panya also then have an intimation with the phrase puru or pure awareness?
Well, in that sense, that even more of, let's say panya is very much in terms of the one who knows, the one who's that act of knowing is an important piece of that, as opposed to looking for sort of that nugget of knowledge that you're trying to get. Yes.
One challenge that I've noticed in working with dukkha is that one can run into the problem of sort of, I don't know if it may not be quite the right word, but contemplating too much of dukkha. Because you get, if you contemplate too much, you can end up depressed.
Well, yeah, especially, and that's where that, the mathematical formula of I am equals unenlightenment. So that the, if one is picking up dukkha as one's sole focus of attention, then we start steeping the mind in, I am dukkha. But there's four noble truths that we need to be attending to, and as opposed to the one noble truth of dukkha, there's the four noble truths, and so we have to be paying conscious attention to the abandoning of cause, or being able to recognize cause, and attending to its abandoning, attending to cessation of dukkha. Because if all we experienced was dukkha all the time, we probably need to be locked up. But the reality is we do experience cessation of dukkha. We skip over it to go back to the dukkha. So it's like a dog going after its own vomit. It's just but we do the same thing, and then of course the kind of enthusiasm that we get for attending to, bringing into being the path, and so that those are what needs to be balancing the training and the practice around those Four Noble Truths, so that we're not just sort of steeping ourselves in the... And there is especially in our kind of our Western framework and Judeo-Christian background of flogging ourselves with dukkha. That's there's a long venerated tradition.
I was listening to one of your 5 aggregate talks maybe 2 days ago, and I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'd be interested to hear more. You said that the nature of dukkha is about lack, something lacking.
I hate it when people said that. Say, I was just listening to your talk as if I can even remember what I...
say around that.
Well, I mean, that sense of, of dukkha being that sense of somehow I'm missing something, that feeling of being incomplete, lacking, and whether it's in terms of because what we keep circling around dukkha because we feel somehow that we're incomplete, whether it's in terms of sensual desire, in that sense of I don't have enough pleasure, I don't have enough satisfaction, I don't have enough happiness, I don't have enough whatever, so that one seeks out a sensory and sensual object to gratify that, then it's coming from that lack. But then also that sense of being and becoming, in the sense of, in terms of self. I either have to make myself something else, somebody else, somehow else, or to get rid of something. I have these horrible flaws and whatnot. I have to get rid of them. I have to annihilate them, and so that being and non-being, becoming and not becoming, impulse in the mind is coming from a feeling of lack, lack. We're missing something. I'm incomplete in some way, shape, or form, and then we try to fill that void with something, whether it's of the world or of the self-perception, and then so we're constantly off balance, trying to get something else, be something else. And so that ability to recognize that impulse and then to come back to the quality. That's why that quality of knowing is your refuge, or it's just being with the one who knows.
It made me think about where on the path there is, mind states that are not characterized by lack. Like dana, generosity, gratitude, faith. And just like that balancing.
Yeah, those are the wholesome qualities that we can go to in terms of practice and training of the mind. It isn't as if you have to sort of create yourself in some complete way. There are these very wholesome, skillful mental states that we can be turning attention towards.
Sometimes I find it rather helpful to say to myself, who or am I, how much am I contributing to the dukkha?
No, yeah. Yeah, and then you've actually found the culprit then.
So, more in this context, would the path be, of what Beth is speaking about, would the path be the weakening of the impulse to grasp through those three kinds of tanha by seeing them and seeing their results, and also simultaneously developing that quality of knowing to a brightness and like a solidity where it's enough to hold you? Because I know, like in the Dhammapada, where the Buddha compares, happiness to a shadow, like much more subtle than the ox cart hoof.
Right.
So could you characterize the path like that, or how would you characterize
correct?
Yeah, I mean, but obviously the path is, I mean, it's nuanced, but you have to, the path has to be, so you build on your skill and confidence in developing the path, so that there is an increased ability to bring into being the wholesome, relinquish the unwholesome. But then, in the end, you also have to be able to be relinquishing and letting go, sort of the whole kit and caboodle. But you can't do that right out of the starting gates.
Well, there's a in the suit. I thought I found some of the suttas, and I had it in my mind, and I can't find it anymore. And it's kind of related to this. The idea that, to paraphrase what it was, is that the uninstructed worldling finds neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensations, neutral sensations, suffering, and the arhants see neutral sensations as pleasant, which is kind of when I think to this idea of skipping over the cessation of suffering. And the way I kind of visualize things is that most people are like, whenever they're in a kind of state of neutrality, that's what causes the mind to move. That's what you either go to some memory of the past or the future. You just are not comfortable with that. Is this the same kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say so.
Neutrality is like, I seem to get all this, a lot of the craving and aversion. It seems like that which kind of drives samsara, this kind of constant moving, is just not being okay with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's in that sense. Again, it's where language sometimes trips us up, in the sense that because what, say, an arahant experiences, what we would call neutrality, or you say it's neutral, but it's way more textured than that, in the sense that it's layered with, because it's built on a quality of clear seeing, then it's a source of happiness and well-being. But the mind doesn't need to go to pleasure or displeasure. There's maybe contentment is a good way. Contentment, and because that contentment and well-being is with not buying into the becoming and non-becoming impulses, and so that's actually where a real brightness of mind really starts to shine forth. And I'm recollecting with the same haziness of your of the source of that.
I searched through digital poly reader. I can't find anything. It's similar to what's said in the Lesser Discourse of Questions and Answers.
Yes, that's what clicked immediately, and I said, I don't think it's not filled out as much. Yeah. Okay, lots to contemplate.